The first insult wasn't spoken. It was performed. A pointed finger. A raised voice. A glare sharp enough to slice through glass. Security. Grant Hollister barked from across the lobby of the Phoenix Global Innovation Summit. Remove her. Now. This entrance is for * executive leadership only. *. His words cut through the marble and chrome space like a whip. Dozens of heads turned at once. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. The hall, once humming with polite networking and nervous ambition, fell silent. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like the video and tell us where you are watching from. The woman he was yelling at didn't flinch. Not even an inch. She stood alone in the VIP entryway, calm as still water, her suit deep navy and tailored with quiet precision. She carried no entourage, no assistant, no loud announcement. Just presence. Measured, controlled, and dangerously underestimated. Grant strode toward her, chest puffed, designer watch glinting under the fluorescent lights like a badge of superiority. He loved to put on a show when cameras were rolling, and they always were during conference season. "Ma'am," a security guard said softly, guarding the tremble in his voice. "This area is restricted. The keynote speaker is arriving here." Grant laughed loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Keynote speaker? Don't be ridiculous. She's clearly staff. Or lost." A ripple of murmurs spread through the hall. Someone whispered, "She doesn't look like a staff." Another muttered, "Grant is really doing this in public?" A young influencer whispered into her live stream, "This is wow. I don't know how this ends, but it's about to get ugly." Grant kept talking, because Grant always kept talking. Volume was his weapon. Arrogance was his armor. "Look," he said, waving dismissively at the woman. "I don't know what department you're from, operations, catering, cleaning, but this entrance is for people who make decisions, not people who carry them out." More laughter, more stares, more phones raised discreetly to record. The woman still didn't respond. Not verbally, not physically. Her expression barely shifted. Only her eyes moved, calm, calculating, assessing the scene like someone trained to read danger before it fully formed. Grant noticed her silence and mistook it, like many men before him, for weakness. He stepped close enough that his cologne clouded the air between them. "I'll only say this once," he said, leaning in with a smirk. "Step aside before you embarrass yourself any more than you already have." It was then, the exact second his smirk widened, that she finally spoke. Her voice was soft. So soft that several people had to lean closer just to catch the words. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Grant blinked, confused, annoyed, threatened. Without breaking eye contact, he snapped at security again. "I said move her." The guard swallowed hard and stepped forward, but she raised a single finger. Just one. And the guard stopped. Instantly. Not because she was intimidating, but because something else happened. Something subtle. Something electric. Something no one could immediately explain. Phones vibrated in pockets. Smartwatches buzzed. Security radios crackled. The giant digital wall displays flickered. "What now?" Grant snarled, looking around impatiently. "Who's hacking the network? If this disrupts my announcement, I swear." But the screens weren't glitching. They were updating. Lines of code flashed. Logos vanished. Panels rebooted one by one until the entire 60-foot screen behind the stage faded to a deep midnight blue. Words began to appear. Slowly. Deliberately. People gasped. Someone dropped a cup. A photographer whispered, No way." Grant turned to look. His smug expression dissolved. Axiom Systems presents keynote speaker, Dr. Naomi Eldridge, Chief Executive Officer, Majority Stakeholder, Strategic Partner ***. Grant's mouth felt open. What is this?" he stammered. "Axiom partnered with * me. **, this is wrong. This is hacked." The hall buzzed like a shaken beehive. "Wait, she's the CEO of Axiom. Axiom owns half the cybersecurity market. They're bigger than Phoenix Global. Hold on, is she the keynote speaker?" Grant spun back toward her, face burning with denial. "You know." No, this can't be real. You're not. But she had already moved past him, walking with the calm assurance of someone who didn't need to explain herself to anyone in that room. Stop, Grant shouted, chasing after her as she headed toward the stage. You don't get to just walk into my event. She turned slightly, just enough to speak without giving him her full attention. This isn't your event. He froze, stunned. She continued walking. Excuse me, he demanded. The Phoenix Global Innovation Summit was built around my project launch. My company. My keynote. Was, she echoed softly. And then everything changed. 2 uniformed men entered the hall. Not security guards. Not event staff. Federal cyber operations officers. The badges they wore weren't the kind that could be ordered or duplicated. They were the kind that ended careers on sight. One addressed her formally. Dr. Eldridge, all access credentials have been transferred. Mr. Hollister's codes and administrative rights have been revoked. Grant blinked rapidly, trying to process the impossible. Revoked? What do you mean revoked? I created Phoenix Global. You can't. The officer corrected him without emotion. Axiom Systems is now the primary funder and controlling stakeholder of Phoenix Global Technologies. You signed the partnership acquisition documents last Thursday. Grant shook his head violently. I didn't sign anything like that. Naomi stopped, finally giving him her full attention. You signed a strategic integration agreement. Buried on page 12, clause 5.9, was a conversion option. Oh, what? A conversion option, she repeated. It allows a minority investor to convert their position into majority control under specific market conditions. He stared at her, speechless. Naomi continued, her tone still quiet, still steady. Your market conditions shifted when you publicly disclosed information you weren't supposed to. You bragged about the Axiom partnership before the press embargo lifted. Grant's eyes widened with horror. That one interview, that one slip, triggered the conversion, she finished. Axiom now owns 62% of your company. Grant swayed, gripping the back of a chair as reality folded in on him. One of his own executives, Marcus Lee, approached cautiously. Grant, he whispered. It's true. Her team activated the conversion last night. We don't own Phoenix Global anymore. The room inhaled collectively. The mighty had fallen, and the fall was silent. Grant turned to Naomi again, his face pale. You planned this. You fooled me. No, she said softly. You fooled yourself. He flinched. You assumed I didn't belong here. You assumed you were untouchable. You assumed volume equals authority. She stepped closer, not threateningly, but with the steady gravity of someone who commanded an entire orbit. You thought power was loud. She paused. Real power is silent. Grant's voice cracked, desperation spreading like cracks in thin ice. We can fix this. We can renegotiate. You don't want this kind of takeover. It'll destabilize the whole sector. Naomi's face softened slightly. You're mistaken again. How? He whispered. I don't destabilize industries, she said. I strengthen them. The officers stepped forward. Mr. Hollister, please follow us. You are being temporarily removed from all operational spaces until the transition is complete. No, Grant barked. This is insane. This is... He reached for Naomi's arm. Security blocked him instantly. She looked at him, unbothered. Grant, she said gently. It didn't have to be this way. His voice cracked with something that sounded like fear. What are you going to do with my company? She offered a calm, enigmatic smile. That depends on what I discover and what you've been hiding. The color drained from his face. Hiding? I haven't, that's not. But the officers were already escorting him out. His voice echoed down the hall. Naomi, don't do this. We can fix this. We can. But she didn't look back. She stepped onto the stage as the massive screen behind her displayed the new era she had quietly created. The hall erupted into applause, not loud, cheering applause, but the kind filled with awe, respect, and relief. She placed both hands on the podium, steady and grounded. Her voice carried through the microphone with perfect clarity. Leadership is not noise. Leadership is not ego. Leadership is not volume. She scanned the room, her eyes connecting with people who had known what it felt like to be underestimated. Leadership, she said softly, is the power to choose what stands, what falls, and what rises from the ashes. And then, just when the hall began to settle, a man in a gray suit approached her from backstage. He whispered urgently in her ear. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. The audience sensed it. A shift. A new tension. Naomi stepped back to the mic. It appears, she said slowly, that Phoenix Global was hiding more than we realized. The hall buzzed. We will need to pause the conference. I have been informed of a situation that requires immediate action. Someone near the front asked nervously, Is everything okay? Naomi's gaze hardened with resolve. That, she said, is what we're about to find out. The lights dimmed. Security moved. And everyone realized this story was far from over. Never underestimate quiet strength. True power doesn't shout, it decides. And when the silent rise, the loud fall hard. Join us for the conclusion of the story in part 2. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe button. We celebrate you.